Service learning is the connection between the curriculum and the community. It's project-based learning with a community service or community needs dimension, community action dimension. This particular project is a really interesting one because it combines the study of history and English and some math and art, so it's really a multidisciplinary project. The students decided to honor and recognize those people who had helped build the Mission neighborhood. So in order to do that, they had to identify who those people were, they had to interview them, they had to write stories about those people's lives, and then they decided to create a mural that honored those heroes, everyday heroes of their neighborhood.
I really had no idea that I would be part of a mural. I thought that I would be asked to tell a brief story about my life that might be helpful in moving young people toward their own goals. And then later I found out that there is this very charming mural which really makes a handsome person out of me.
I felt really privileged, I mean genuinely privileged to be considered one of the people there, although I feel more like I'm more of a character than anything. And then when I saw the picture that they painted on the outside, I was so stunned that it was so, the exuberance in it, the kind of freshness, just open-faced belief in the mission and the community, and I think that's why it makes it real special.
I try to tie everything in with academics. Like there's a book that came out of this project. It involved incredible writing skills. They had to edit, they had to revise. They had to first learn interviewing skills. They had to have all kinds of public speaking skills. They had, oratory, they had to read, they had to research. There's so much involvement. And when kids are involved, they do more. They just perform better.
This project is like about the mission heroes and how they help the mission, but most of these people haven't been recognized, and this mural is to recognize them.
2 children took leads, Joyce Ledesma and Javier Rodriguez. They just devoted, they became total artists. And Joyce had been a really hard child. She was a handful, and she's now just a straight A student. No, not straight A's, but A's and B's. Things have changed, her life. She found something she could do. And she writes well. Gifted child, just hated school.
Well, before I was kind of stupid, I guess, because I didn't want to do any work, and I just talked with my friends while I was in the classroom, and I didn't really care about learning. I would just copy my friends, and now it's just like I have something to do that's fun and that I want to participate in.
Service learning is taking a step forward because you have certain skills, you have a certain feeling towards, or maybe you have a passion that this touches, and you get involved.
Yeah, I'm really proud of it, I guess, because I haven't really done anything like it before.
Why is our hospital project important?
The way we define service learning is that service learning is a method of teaching and a way of learning. So we look for an identified need that's really authentic, that kids can agree on. We design a service around it, and then we find ways to tie it to the curriculum, because the business of schools is really about delivering curriculum.
Also, you need to have projects that involve students in cooperative effort, where they are working together as a team, preparing them for later in life. Now, in this particular case, it's a kindergarten project, but you're never too young to participate in the team approach, focusing on what are they going to get out of it from the curriculum standpoint, the involvement of students in their community. Together, they can do this kind of a project.
It started out in my mind to be a much smaller project than what it ended up, but things have a way of snowballing, and you mean to do one thing and it turns into a lot of other things. And but I saw how the kids just loved it, and everything about it, and it meant a lot to them, and so I really enjoyed doing it more than I really had thought at the beginning.
I received a call from a kindergarten teacher, Roberta Sullivan, asking if there were any special things that I could think we needed for children in the emergency department. She was working with her class and wanted to do something special for kids that are sick. And so Roberta and I did begin talking about it and created what you have here. The story that she told me is that she talked with kids about how did they feel about the hospital, and they shared stories about how scary it is, and when you're sick, how you are afraid of the doctors, you're afraid of the nurses, you're afraid of the place that you go, so that they started coming up with what are the things that would make you less afraid.
Our project went from November to June. We finished up in June, so it was really a year long. And of course it took a lot of effort and energy on our parts, but there's so much more to be gained from that, and it excites you. It, keeps you invigorated, seeing what happens with the kids and how excited they are about it, and you know that they're getting a lot from it.
One of the most delightful days of my career, I have to say, is the day that that entire class came and hung these pictures on the wall. Here were these proud children that really knew they were making a difference. The hospital administrator talked to them about how important this was and that they had helped kids for years and years to come by the work that they did.
It is kids in action working with the real world, and it tends to look messy, but the academics that can be involved in it are really, really strong and valid. And much of the learning takes place in reflection, and that's something that we're still learning about, the value of reflection. Not only in the classroom, but for teachers and for students, pre-reflection, post-reflection. What did you do? What did you hear? What did you smell? What did you feel? What did you learn?
And as far as fitting into the curriculum, I've always felt if I were going to do math one day, I do a math lesson that has to do with this project, measuring the room and then collecting the money and sorting it out and finding how much we spent and how much left we had to spend. And the art, we did tons of artwork. You're doing writing, say instead of about what's their favorite food or what are the fall leaves doing outside, we would do it about this project. So I think you can work everything in and not be leaving anything out. I never feel compromised in that way. I feel that you can do everything. In fact, I remember Kathy, the other teacher in the room, and I, laughing last year, said the only thing we didn't do was music, and we can sing on the bus on the way to the hospital. So we feel that we have covered everything, but given them more than that, because it's not just isolated material. It relates to real life problems, something a community really needed, and it was great to be able to do something about it.
The payoff comes in that these students are the young adults of this community. I anticipate them being the active parents and community leaders of our city in the future.
I guess the best story would be an elderly patient that I do remember being in this room who was in pain, who we were having trouble controlling her pain. And she looked up and suddenly the expression on her face changed. And I started to tell her the story of the 5-year-old children that put this room together and why they did it. And she smiled and said, "They did it for me too."